Hey, what's up, everyone? Brad Chmielewski here with episode 185 of Shatter The Vain. Whew, holidays are here. Christmas is right around the corner, and SEMC delivered us with a sweet gift. We got the first reveal of 5v5 during the Vainglory Worlds this past weekend. I watched a handful of the games. This week I have Belligerent joining me to kind of talk over some of these games, and then the two of us dive into 5v5, get some thoughts on it, things we were kind of seeing from the matches we saw, pulling stuff from the other MOBAs we know like Smite and League of Legends, and how things might shake up or could shake up, or just the questions we still have because I haven't played it. Very few people have. The PBE testers have had a chance to do it. There's a few elite people that are very dedicated, and they got their limelight playing that first match on the stream, so that's pretty awesome for them. I know I've had a handful of them here on the podcast over the years, so very cool to see them playing there a lot. And still playing the game because most of them don't play that often on the live servers because they're busy with the PBE, so they're always over there, so you don't see them on the live that often. So 5v5 looks awesome. It's still in alpha, so some of those monsters, those treants, are just placeholders. The river, the water, oh, that is beautiful. I had this idea when I was doing this podcast called The Lane, about League of Legends, where you could have heroes where if they were on water, they got like a buff moving, and SCMC went a little farther that if you're running with the river, you get a movement speed buff. That's such a good idea. It takes advantage of the terrain more, and I like seeing that because you have this waterway, you have these jungles, these bushes, like these walls. You need to take advantage of them. They're there. Why not? You can work around them. But the game looks awesome. Just blown away by the video that they put out. So Belligerent and I both dive into that quite a bit. We talk also about his podcast that he's doing, The Queue. Everyone should go over there, subscribe, check it out on iTunes. There should be a link in the description to his channel. So go over there, check it out. He's putting up quite a bit of content, nearly every day or a couple times a week at this point. So go check that out. And then I want to mention the Patreon page before we jump into this episode, patreon.com/shatterthevain. If you can support the show in any way, that's the place to do it. Love everyone that listens, watches, checks out the show every week, has been supporting and watching for 185 episodes. That's pretty awesome. So thank you everyone out there who's been doing that. But Patreon page is there if you want to donate in any other way. Like I said, I think in the last episode or the one before that, I need to kind of maybe rethink the rewards or what we're doing there moving into 2018, but stuff to think about with 5v5 coming and that channel and just so much stuff going on right now in Vainglory. It's very exciting, and I'm super hyped for everything that's coming. Let's do it. Let's jump into episode 185.
Shatter the Vain.
This is the 185th episode of Shatter the Vain. My name is Brad Chmielewski, and it's a podcast all about Vainglory. Every week, I try to break down the news, gameplay, game tips, and hopefully we can all become better players together. Every week, bringing people from the Vainglory community, people that love this game, support it, talk about it, make content. And this week, I have Belligerent joining me once again. Welcome back.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, great. It's good to have you here. It's been a few months, and a lot has changed for you.
Oh, yeah. Last time we talked, was right after I was with Gangstars at the time, right after our London championship matches.
So I think at that point, there was a little bit of uncertainty if you were going to stay or what was happening with Gangstars. I think that happens with any team. They're never sure what happens with their players after a season or their coaches or their analysts. So so that was the last time we talked, and then you switched over to another team, and talk about like what's been going on a little bit. That's probably the best way to start.
Well, after leaving Gangstars, I hooked on with Nova. Worked with them for, I guess, a season and a half. I kind of hooked on to with them after right around the split of the summer season. We went to live championships in LA, ended up in the 3rd/4th place ranking, since they don't really do a 3rd place match for those ones. So, and then went through the autumn season with them as well. And then after that, I stepped down just because I didn't have enough time after, picking up a new real job. And, even there towards the end of the autumn season, I just wasn't as involved as I felt the team deserved. And, their new, at least interim coach, I don't know exactly how they're doing it over there, but Left Spectre, he was basically kind of acting as coach for the tail end of that season there. And I would show up on Saturdays because I had Saturdays off, so I was able to be there for, kind of our first round of the weekend.
Okay.
So I just didn't feel that it was right for me to kind of hang around and do that to the team. And so I stepped down from them, and, that's kind of where it's at right now.
Mm-hmm. How was it, I guess, doing Gangstars and Nova? Did you feel like, well, I guess the time commitment was a little different, but do you feel like the players were as committed on both sides? And do you feel like there were strengths or weaknesses in, I guess, each organization?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because, like, with Gangstars, I was dealing with all 20-something-year-olds.
Yeah.
And then with Nova, the oldest player on their team was Starboy, who's only 19 at the time.
Okay.
So, and you're talking the youngest player, Truth, being 13, I believe. So, it was definitely different. It took a lot of getting used to, switching from, Gangstars to Nova. I think that Gangstars had a better understanding of how to approach things in a professional way, as where a lot of my energy with Nova was spent towards trying to help them help them understand how to handle things professionally. And I was never fully successful at that. Still, there for a while, it was no secret that, everybody knew that Nova was kind of like the trolley team.
Sure.
And, I think a big portion of that was their age. And, when I first hooked on with them and first went into their first scrim, it was like chaos. I was, oh my God, what's going on here? So they definitely made huge strides from when I joined to where they were at when I left, as far as, kind of taking things seriously. They weren't quite where I would have liked to see them as a coach, but they learned and they worked at it. The live event, working with Nova, I fully understand how a team like Tribe, or I think it's probably more specifically Zio, although any team he's on kind of gets lumped into this whole live buff thing. But,
sure.
Working with Nova gave me good kind of insight as to how that actually works, because, the guys on Nova were able to focus more fully and take things more seriously when it's live, because when you're sitting on a stage and you got all these people staring at you, they're going to know if you're acting like a dumbass.
Sure.
Things like that. So I think in a way it's probably just younger players that can get that quote unquote live buff, because it's like, where do you, when I was a teenager, when you were a teenager, where did you behave better? When you're sitting in the classroom in front of the teacher, or when you're out on the playground at recess and you might be able to get away with it?
Sure. Yeah. And you want to show, you do want to put your best foot forward, because when you're like 20 or older people, you're like, I'm already set in my way, or like, I know what I should do. So you don't have maybe as much like focus and determination to prove yourself when you're on the stage as someone who's 13.
Right. And I think when, as you get older and you get more experience, you kind of you know how to handle those situations more. As when, when you're younger, when you're in your teens and stuff like that, you have that fear of, like, if I mess around here on stage, I don't just get to disconnect from my computer. I still have to walk around this place and have everybody judging me, right? There's not just an on-off switch to being there live.
Uh-huh. And yeah, I think was it at that event we saw like some hands didn't get shaked, and like, yeah, when you see that happen, it's like it's amplified. It's on.
Yeah, I
Twitch.
think that was between Hammers and Immortals at the time at that one, where there were some of those questionable decisions. But and that's, again, I think a lot of that had to do with age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then so that's fun. You get to see, like, I guess, two different sides of these organizations that are kind of like the age group and what they're doing. They're both like still growing, Gangsters and Nova. So it's probably neat to be a part of that so early for both these.
Yeah, and with Nova, it was also a matter of experience. That was the first live event for all of those guys, as where I think the entire team of Gangstars has been to multiple events. The entire team that I was coaching, Iraqi, Zeno, and Rect, had all been to multiple live events. So there was a little less, with Nova, there was a lot more of, oh my God, I get to see all of these friends that I play with all the time. Let me, run around like it's recess and say hi to everybody. As where with Gangstars, it was, they were able to, we were here for business and stuff like that. So.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And so now you're not coaching now, but because you're like a little tied up with the real work and jobs, but you're doing this new thing called the Q, right?
Yeah.
So this is a audio, I guess, thoughts on YouTube. Is that what's the best way to describe this?
I think of it as a podcast. Okay. It's on iTunes as well.
Oh, nice. Okay. I didn't realize that.
I used YouTube mainly because I'm cheap and didn't want to pay for a service like Libsyn or SoundCloud. And I was actually going to go with SoundCloud first, but they don't allow you to schedule when it was released. And, I wanted to be able to, if I wanted to sit down and record 3 or 4 episodes in one day and then schedule them to release each day, and I couldn't do that with SoundCloud. So ultimately, that's why it's on YouTube.
Okay. That makes sense. I didn't realize it was on iTunes. I've only seen or listened to the YouTube versions.
It's actually on iTunes. The easiest way to find it is by searching for my name, because if you search for the name of the show, there's like a bazillion shows with the word The Q. There's even a couple of other podcasts called The Q, but then you also get things like podcasts that are talking about, like there was one I think named The Movie Q or something like that. So when I search for it by The Q, it's hard to find when I search, if you search my name because I'm the author, then it pops right up. So that's why it's audio only on YouTube. But I have kind of dabbled with a couple of other things like Rules of Survival, as far as doing like some videos. I'm contemplating doing some Vainglory YouTube videos, but there's already a ton of those out there, so I want it to be something a little different. But yeah, the Q, I think of it as just a podcast.
Okay.
Still kind of gathering or developing, I guess, what the identity of it is. And that's the reason why I went with the name The Queue, because so many different games and types of games have some type of waiting queue, right? If you're gonna play with if it's like a multiplayer game, online game, you have some type of queue. So it didn't lock me into a specific game if I wanted to move on. Most of the content on there is Vainglory. It's very possible that I just kind of go full-time Vainglory for as long as I'm seen, because it's what I know. It's what most of my time is dedicated to. So yeah. What
made you, I guess, start that? Was it because you weren't coaching and you kind of wanted to keep talking about it and adding insight to the community? Or had this been something you were thinking about for a while?
Part of it. I like talking. I've done like live broadcasts, I guess, online before, where it's not like a pre-recorded podcast. You have to show up at 7 o'clock every Wednesday night and listen. So I've done those types of shows before, not in the video game and other genres and other worlds and stuff like that, before I got into esports and stuff. And right before I started coaching Gangstars, I had started a podcast called Gamer DNA. Okay. And we only did 3 episodes because after we actually recorded, I think, like 5 or 6 episodes, but I never had time to edit the other 3. But then I hooked on with Gangstars, and they were like, we want kind of your full-time attention. So I was so excited to actually get that opportunity. I was like, yeah, I'll give you guys whatever you want. So that kind of got bailed on. But I've always liked talking. I've always liked doing podcasts, stuff like, talk show type things. So
right. And
that's kind of why.
And then, so for each, I guess, episode of the Q, you have a topic, right? It's, we're here, we kind of run down the news and just a handful of things, but yours are kind of focused on one specific thing for that episode, right?
Generally, yeah, that's how it works. Although it is, I wing everything. It's all off the top of my head. I don't have something where it's like, I'm going to talk this subject, and this subject. So sometimes I tend to ramble off topic. So you might get a couple of topics in each episode, but because I originally was going to do them every day, I haven't been able to live up to that commitment, but they're fairly regular. So I try to keep them fairly short, around like 15 minutes is my goal. If I'm really on a roll, it'll go 20, 25 minutes, but I try and keep them short. And yeah, about one subject, whatever thought is on my mind. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're ridiculous. So
yeah, everyday content is tough. Like, I try to put up a YouTube gameplay video every day. It doesn't happen all the time. I have that goal, but yeah, stuff just doesn't work out.
Yeah. And for me, like, when I'm doing my podcast, if I found that when I was doing it every day, it was just kind of like I wasn't into it, right? Like, yeah. I was just finding content to talk about, and it was just kind of blah. As when I really find inspiration in something, I get a lot of good feedback from those episodes. So I've kind of tried to tone it back and just talk when I have something that I really want to talk about, rather than just filling space.
That's cool. And now you have probably a ton to talk about with the 5v5 coming up and all those changes and just like where the game is going. So I'm sure you have plenty of content in the in the queue, right?
Yeah. there's just not enough time. Yeah, I did an episode about 5v5, but there's still so much more to discuss. And sometimes everything that needs to be discussed is very difficult when you're doing a talk show solo, and that's how I do most of my shows. Not that I'm opposed to having other people on, but I do it solo because of because my time is so kind of random. Sure. It's just when I get time to sit down and record, I record, and it's hard to coordinate that. If I was to do something like with a co-host or something, it's hard for me to go, hey, I got time, where are you at? And they're like, well, I don't, I'm at the store.
Yeah.
So that's why it's usually solo with me. And so all of the topics that I cover always have so much more to talk about. And some of that so much more to talk about is sparked by hearing other people's thoughts or responses to what I have to say. So yeah, especially 5v5, so much to talk about and never enough time, even though I did a full episode kind of giving my thoughts on the 5v5 thing. There's never enough time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess that kind of is perfect here. Then I'm glad you were able to make time tonight, because we'll dive into it, and that's probably a great segue to talk about the Worlds, and then 5v5. Those are kind of the 2 big news topics this week.
Vainglory News.
I think we should start with the Worlds. We'll sum that up quickly, kind of run through that, because that's almost old news now. If you didn't watch them or didn't read the plenty of Broken Myth articles, I'm sure Time for Rolling has an episode already out running down it. But
I think Time for Rolling did an episode every single day on it. So they did 4 episodes over the course of Worlds.
So I'm coming at it late here, so I'll just kind of recap it a little bit. And to be honest, I didn't watch a lot of them because of the time zone they were in. I'd maybe catch one game before I'd go to sleep, whatever series that was, and then it would be back on as I was getting up in the morning, getting ready for work, kind of doing that, see what the end of the day looked like. And then if there was anyone else throughout the day, I'd kind of listen or watch something if I could.
Yeah, and well, let's be honest, they didn't make it easy either, and not even just the time frame, but the technical difficulties, and that's not right. Like, I'm not trying to beat up SEMC. I can't imagine what goes into broadcasting one of those things, but like I requested days off from work to kind of enjoy the event, and I was planning on pulling all-nighters, and then I remember that I'm old and I can't pull all-nighters all the time, but like I would be there ready at my time. They were starting at 11 o'clock, and I'm like, all right, I can put in a good 2-3 hours,
right,
whatever, and see most of them and catch up, and then it's like technical difficulties. I think the first day one, the groups, it didn't start, it was like 3 hours late.
Yeah, that was probably the worst way they could start their big event in the Worlds. 3 hours late, bad audio. They went for a half hour with no audio before they finally decided
realized
to pull the plug. I don't know, like, how do you I'm sure there's people watching it, but yeah. But minus those hiccups on the day one, they got it straightened out. Day 2 was a little couple
day things. 2, I think they were a little bit late, an hour late maybe, because they wanted to make sure everything was right. And then I believe 3 and 4 went off without a hitch.
Yeah. So that was good. Yeah, I think that it was like SEA problems. I think if you're in SEA and you have internet problems, it was like so appropriate for just, I feel like, what we think SEA internet problems for Vainglory is.
Yeah, it does kind of feel like you're always seeing a tweet from Vainglory going, all of the servers are up except for SEA.
Right. So makes sense.
Yeah.
So then the brackets, the teams, Tribe made it all the way through and it ended up winning this whole thing, which was a surprise to me. We were talking about Zeno's live buff thing, but I had them out in my bracket in the first round. I thought maybe they were going off this high of the Vainglory 8 and weren't gonna cut it once they hit the stage. Man, was I wrong?
Yeah, like I had tried getting out of groups because I don't know a lot about the other regions, so it's hard for me not to give probably more credit than some of our teams deserve to them, but I didn't see like them being last in their group, but I didn't see obviously the whole tournament didn't work out like anybody thought, because I'm pretty sure after day 1 all of the brackets that everybody filled out were shot to hell,
right?
So, but just thinking about how it played out, like when they went up against Cloud9, and I said this in my podcast as well, I didn't think Tribe had a chance.
No,
because Cloud9 was steamrolling everybody. They were they didn't even drop a game going into that match, and so like I didn't think Tribe stood a chance.
And yeah, I think all the tweets leading up to it were like, C9 has this whole thing in the bag, unless like there's no way they can lose this. They're playing so great, like you said, undefeated so far, and then Tribe came in, and maybe it was overconfidence by Cloud9. It's tough to say there, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all of us out here, kind of talking about it or tweeting about it or whatever, we're never going to know what happened with Cloud9. Something happened that was more than just their execution, because their drafting was off. Like Tribe made them look made them look ridiculous in the draft. It was that bad in my opinion, as far as how bad Tribe outdrafted Cloud9. And so there was legitimately something going on there.
Yeah, I feel like maybe they just got in their own head. They like overthought those drafts, thinking.
Yeah, well, and I think that's probably those, Cloud9 and Tribe. Tribe is Cloud9's main scrim partner, so I think some of that got to that. Like they overthought things, right? They're like, we scrim against these guys all the time, so we kind of know what they want to do. So let's like if you look at the very first match where Cloud9 first picks Adagio and then second picks Vox. Well, they're completely targeting Zeo and his hero pool, but Zeo has a pretty big hero pool.
Yeah.
And then they put themselves in like this corner where like, all right, we stole these 2 heroes from Zeo, but now our draft is, crap. So it was just things like that I think messed them up. Because if you look at and it wouldn't be the first time that Cloud9 has done that, and it also wouldn't be the first time that a team has had that happen to them when they go up against Tribe. Think TSM from Summer Championships, where like they, for whatever reason, they just can't figure Tribe out because they overthink things. Like if you look at Cloud9, like when they play teams that they just don't know, they don't think about all this additional stuff when it comes to drafting, right? They make you draft the way that they want you to draft.
Yeah, that's just so weird that maybe they'll learn from this. They'll see what they did and kind of realize that. So, or hopefully moving forward for them.
Right.
I think one of the bigger surprises was TSM just kind of falling apart on that second day. And just
well, it was technically the first day. It was just they had so many.
That's right.
It was groups. They didn't like TSM didn't make it out of groups.
Yeah.
But it happened on the second day because of all the technical difficulties they had on the first day.
Right,
so
yeah, it was before the official day 2 started. But TSM, for how much everyone gives them credit for Flash's drafting, it just falls apart when Vansi doesn't get ahead to carry the game. That's kind of just usually what happens. If Vansi's not ahead and can't just be the monster that he wants to be, the team can't do anything.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people probably feel kind of robbed by TSM because and I know I do to a certain extent. I got into the coaching side of it, and so I got involved with other things and was no longer looking at it as a fan, but like going into Worlds last year, I was even less experienced with other regions, and I didn't think like anybody had a chance to beat TSM. And then this team named Phoenix Armada, who I personally had never heard of at the time, comes in and just dominates everybody. And then so I'm like, you know what? TSM is this team that is just gonna like hyper focus and just clean everything up, and they'll be back. And if you look at the spring season, it looked like that, right? They were number 1 team, dominant until they got to the live event. And then Cloud9 beats them. And then they come back after that and go into the summer season, and like they don't drop they win the first 4 weeks, which nobody else has ever done in the VG8. And then they kind of do TSM things so nobody even thinks about it in the second half of the summer season, where they start trying other things and they start dropping matches, but they're still well in first place. Right. And then we go to Summer Lives and Tribe beats them. It's like, what's going on?
Yeah, they have like the live debuff.
They have the live debuff or something. And I think we honestly have to question how much of this whole like Flash retiring, quote unquote, thing was looming over them, and how much was Flash stepping back and letting Vonsi and Chuck run the show, and how much of that was affecting them. And like, those are things only they know. And honestly, maybe they'll never know because maybe they can't, not everybody is great at self-assessment. So, just because it's happening to you, maybe you still don't realize it. But as outsiders, we'll never know. But I'm going to speculate and say I think that a lot of that stuff had to do with their performances this year.
Yeah, but I guess, you would think that they want to perform extra hard because Flash is retiring and want to go out on the top, right? So.
Right. Well, that's what they want. But at the same time, when they were going through all that, we're going to let Chuck and Von C decide whether they want Flash or Lucky Bread, starting each week. I mean, really? Really? Like, really? No, that's not how it works. And so There was just so, and when they get into, it's weird because like I always think of TSM as kind of they're like the trailblazers, right? They're the ones that come up with that Captain Koshka. Flash is the first one that makes Churnwalker work once he's released, and like in the first weekend of Churnwalker's release, like he becomes insta-ban against Flash. That's how good he is when no other team can win with Churnwalker. And they're always looking ahead, and they're always the ones that pull out these weird drafts that nobody in the Western region, nobody is brave enough to do, or nobody even thinks about. But then they get into the live events, and we don't see any of that innovation come out. It's just kind of by the book type stuff, and they start getting out drafted. So it's kind of it's interesting, it's weird, and it's disappointing.
Right. Yeah. And even this time at Worlds, like you said, that innovation, we didn't see it from really anyone. It was kind of straight play most of the time, no crazy picks.
Well, I think the closest team to an innovator was probably Impunity. They broke out like the Weapon Power Batiste one match. And
I missed that one. Okay.
Oh yeah, that was a good one. They just I forget, they were playing against Team Kraken.
Okay.
And I believe Team Kraken's carry is like God status with Celeste.
Yeah.
And so Impunity picks the Celeste from them, and then so Kraken, I believe, picked a dive comp. I want to say it was Koshka and Rona to kind of dive on the Celeste and blow her up, and then Impunity picks this Batiste, right? Because he's really good at the peel and locking people down with the Ordain, and everybody on the stream thought that they were going double CP.
Right.
And then we get into the game, and they go Weapon Power Batiste, and Weapon Power Batiste into that comp was a monster.
Ooh, okay,
so,
I'm gonna have to go back and watch that one.
You gotta go back, and I don't remember exactly which match it was, but yeah, it was Impunity versus Team Kraken. Mm-hmm. So they were innovative, and I think they were probably, and that they made it to the semifinals. They made it. They took fourth place in the match, and I don't think a lot of people were giving them that much credit, but I think they made it that far because of their innovative drafts and drafting off meta and not being scared to be a team that's going to draft what works versus what's meta. And I think that's what's always made teams like Cloud9 and TSM strong. And I can tell you from personal experience trying to draft against them, right? They don't care about what's meta. They care about what's going to work into your comp.
Yeah.
And like the thing with Cloud9 and what's made them so strong and such a pain to draft against is that their players can basically play everybody. So if there's a hero that's weak in the meta, but a strong counter to what you pick, they're still going to play him and they're still going to do good on him. But I didn't see that from them. I mean, when we saw it from Cloud9 in the first two rounds, but then when they faced Tribe, we didn't see that. Yeah, we saw Tribe doing that to them.
Yeah, like we said, they thought about it too much rather than thinking about what's good, what's going to work.
Right.
But yeah, congratulations to Tribe. Like you said, Phoenix Armada won last year and Tribe won this year, and they were both teams that were acquired just before these events. So that's pretty amazing. Spent a lot of money, I'm sure, for the organizations on both sides for those players to get that Worlds title.
Oh yeah. I talked to somebody from one organization. I won't say which organization or who it is, but I talked to somebody who told me that they also had the opportunity to acquire Immortals when Immortals sold that team. And they said that the price was so high that the only way that they could have broken even or maybe made a little bit of profit was if the team went all the way in one world. And they weren't ready to make that kind of gamble, especially, I mean, and really, can you fault them the way that Cloud9 just destroyed everybody, right? Like, I mean, I wouldn't have made that bet, but it turns out to pay off for Chief Pat. But yeah, that's so I know that the price tag was high. I don't know what it was, but that was kind of the description that was given to me.
So, yeah, that's cool. So yeah, go back and probably watch the finals. I know Tribe did lose a game there, so they didn't clean sweep it.
Yeah, they did drop a game, and there was at least one other game where it looked like Ace was going to win. There were a couple of times where I was watching it and going, "Oh, Ace is going to make a series of this," and it never happened. But
I think it was a great, series to watch, and it didn't show NA just like stomping.
Yeah, no, they didn't stomp except for maybe the fourth and final game, if I recall. It feels like one of them was just like a curb stomping, but they were all very competitive other than maybe one of them. Yeah, so definitely worth the watch.
But then I think besides that, the whole series and event happening, we also got all the first reveal of 5v5, all those drips we've been getting of new items, new, new monsters, just layouts are finally here. We got to see it in all its glory, and it looks beautiful. They talked about for a long time about the polygon count and the fog of war that's added for the first time on mobile, and yeah, it just looks pretty. What were your first thoughts seeing it?
Well, my first thoughts seeing it was that I was amazed because I'm part of the PBE, so I've had access to play 5v5 for probably the last 2 months or so.
Oh.
But so lately I haven't had the time because they do like these PBE testings like really late at night, and I have to wake up at like 5 o'clock in the morning for work. So I just haven't been able to be a part of it more than like 3 or 4 times. But back when I actually did get a chance to go play it and see it, like none of this artwork was there. It was very like, it wasn't like, just outlines. There was actually a map there, but all of the flora and the statues and stuff like that just wasn't there. So I was just shocked by the look and the artwork and how well that it's come together. And they say they're not even done with it yet. So I can't wait to see where it's going to end up as far as aesthetics when they're done with this thing.
Right. There's some monsters that are still treants that are going to be a frog, and I think a couple other things.
Golden toad or something like that. I don't know what that is, but yeah. When the very first 5v5 that I played, Ghostwing and Black Claw were Krakens.
Okay.
There wasn't a dragon. It was a Kraken to go take.
I guess I'm a little sad to see the Kraken be gone and replaced with these 2 different dragons, but maybe that separates this map versus the 3v3 map, so it feels like they are completely different rather than just like, oh yeah, Kraken's in both of them. It's the same, but
I kind of agree with you. Like, I think Kraken is kind of like, Kraken is like, look at this trophy that was on stage, right? Kraken is the icon of Vainglory, and for that to not be there makes me a little sad. Like, even if you wanted to introduce like the Black Claw, this new badass dragon that marches down the lane, helps you, take turrets, maybe you make the Ghostwing thing, the one that gives you the buff, look like a Kraken or something like that. I think there could have been a way to keep Kraken in there.
Yeah.
I'm a little disappointed that they didn't, but it is what it is. In 4 or 5 months, once we're all playing 5v5, nobody will care. Nobody will even remember the Kraken.
Right, unless you go back and if 3v3 survives at all.
Yeah, well, I think they've already said that 3v3 is going to stay part of the game, and I personally think it's a good idea to keep it as an option in the game because I think of things like, I think of my daughter. She's 12. She's not like Truth from Nova type 12-year-old. She's a regular 12-year-old, who is not like this Vainglory genius, right? So I can picture her trying to go into a 5v5 match and just like having no clue what to do, just being overwhelmed with the size and the scope of how to play a 5v5 match. As where like 3v3, I know that a lot of us probably don't remember when we were brand new to Vainglory and running around it like a bunch of idiots. But, 3v3, she can, put on her Taka, her Kashka, and kind of wander around the jungle. But 3v3 is so contained that, players like her are never really going to, like on the 5v5 map, right? Like you could go get lost in that jungle for the entire match, right? And your team's like, what are you doing? As we're 3v3, you like eventually have to run into people, even if you don't understand the concept of a MOBA. So I think for especially for younger, more casual players, 3v3, is going to be a lot easier for them to process.
Mm-hmm. I wonder moving forward if we'll see the ranked, either casual or ranked in 3v3 just merge back to one, because at that point maybe you don't need both of them. But that we should stay to the 5v5 talk. That's all speculation. Right. But when I first saw, I guess I watched a couple of the matches that they played, seeing everyone run around, I feel like the lanes and the jungle look very big compared to something like League of Legends, where you can fit maybe like 2 heroes, 3 heroes in that lane, and it feels like very full. There's something like grand looking about the map, and I don't know if that's good or bad. I haven't played it, and this is just me watching it, and it could have been the spectator client, so that does add something
different. The spectator client makes everything look bigger. I don't know if people have noticed that, but like I've watched watching VG8 matches, and I see like, the circle that pops up when, an ability is like incoming or something like that. I'm like, that thing's not that big when I play.
Yeah.
So it makes everything look bigger when they broadcast it on the spectator map. But I don't know if I kind of like it. Mm-hmm. I will tell you that the very first 5v5 match I played, I was completely useless to my team because I was lost wandering around just trying to figure out what all this stuff did. Right. So it was very overwhelming for me. And I have some 5v5 MOBA experience, not League of Legends. I tried that. I made it through the tutorial. When I got to the point of opening up the shop in my first practice match and saw like 8,000 items, I'm like, I'm done. Yeah. I don't need that much. That's just that's like, that's overwhelming. So I've never been a League of Legends player. I've never even watched Dota on Twitch, so I don't even know what that looks like. But like with Smite, Smite is my main 5v5 experience. Okay. And like when I think about the way that it compares, like the Vainglory map feels like, to me it feels different enough. Okay. Because the Smite map, like when I play it, feels very like enormous. Like when you're in your lane, like you're in your lane, and then there's a whole nother world out there. And so you can have like an entire team fight in the lane. You say League has more narrow lanes.
Yeah, it felt like closer corridors, like we know from 3v3. I guess that's how League feels a little bit.
Yeah. So like I know with Smite, like the difference, like on the scale compared to the heroes type stuff, Smite was, to me at least, feels very large. Okay. Kind of like you're saying that the Vainglory map does, but where I think it differs is like watching like the Vainglory map, there's so many different like angles and openings and bushes and stuff for people to like try and pull off a gank. Right, yeah. As where like on Smite, it's like, okay, I know like you can come out of that spot or that spot. And if you try and come out from behind me, my turret or my towers are going to kill you before you ever even make it here. So I'm not worried about that. As where with like, Vainglory, it's like, oh my God, there are so many. So it's like a laner who's playing it safe can have like this long build up laning phase, which is kind of what 3v3 is missing, right? You have like a 5-minute laning phase, and then all chaos breaks out. It was actually really nice watching the 5v5 happen and actually just seeing like, look, there's actually a laning phase. But to me, it felt like there's enough angles, openings, and stuff like that where if you have a laner that tends to overextend, if you have a laner that's a little more brazen with their play or their positioning, there's plenty of angles for them to get ganked.
Right.
Like I remember the SEA team, I believe the player's name was Chingy, was playing Glaive both games and like just, pulling off ganks. Like if you weren't paying attention, and just all over the place. So
yeah, like you said, like those, like in Smite or League, like you can't go in and proxying waves and things like that. It's very risky and hard. And it looked like in the Vainglory map, like you could easily go behind the turret and not get hit and walk around and just be safe, proxy the wave, move on, and dip back in the jungle. It was kind of, that's maybe what makes me think of it as like big or just having all this space for you to like move around in.
Yeah, like I kind of think back to what they originally told us was their goal and their idea behind the 5v5 map. I don't know if they quite accomplished it, at least the way that I envisioned it, but maybe because of like the scale of the map and like what how wide these lanes are. Because I remember, I don't know if anybody else does, but I remember they told us that their intent was to design a map where it had very specific areas. Like there was going to be wide open areas where ranged heroes were going to
that's right,
be stronger and more powerful because there just really wasn't any place for the assassins to like jump on them. And then there were going to be, more areas with more, dense ganking opportunities. And so I think like with them having these wide open lanes where you can have all these big team fights and not necessarily the best, proximity to try and gank somebody from a bush, I think maybe they accomplished that a little bit because in the jungle, there's like bushes all over the place.
There are a lot of bushes.
Like in the North America versus Southeast Asia match, I remember like there was this one little side bush where like they fit 3 of them in it and just mobbed on this one poor guy that walked by. So yeah, I think to a certain extent they accomplished what they had originally told us that they were trying to do.
Yeah, which is good. Watching some of these matches, it right now looks like chaos out there because one, none of us really know how this map works, where everything is, and there's no meta yet, right? It's just like we're kind of playing it the same way, but we're trying to use these ideas or tactics from other MOBAs, but at the same time, we're Vainglory players and we want to fight all the time.
Right, yeah, like I saw some of that coming from Von C, where it's like, he still has like this no fear, just fight, even though there's like 4 of them and 1 of him, and
right.
He's lost in the jungle somewhere, nobody knows where he's at, and it was interesting watching, how like at least the possibilities of how some of the macro play is gonna work out with the rotations and stuff, because like in the NA versus SEA match, like NA was constantly, grouping up for team fights of like 3 and 4, but like Flash just stayed up in the top lane farming with Jewel.
Okay.
It never came down until like he makes this spectacular play where the other 4 get wiped out and the other, the SEA team is trying to take Ghostwing, and he kind of wanders over there behind it. He drops one of those scout cameras or whatever, the webcams, I don't know what they're called.
The scout cams, yeah.
Yeah, that you can apparently place at distances away from you rather than just on the path that you walk to. So he places one over the wall without them noticing, I guess, so he can see what's going on, and makes this great steal on the Ghostwing all by himself. And then takes that buff that he gets from Ghostwing and turns it into going over and getting, taking Black Claw. So like seeing the way that some of this, where you have, and that's where I think we're going to see players make their way into the pro level that we didn't previously before. Because if you can do what Flash was doing on that Jewel, where you can just stay in the top lane and hold that lane and do your farm, and we don't have to think about you or worry about you as far as, you know, coming up to save you and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, somebody who's just really good at farming and playing safe can find their way onto a pro team, as where before, if you're not, you know, don't have a high mechanical skill and you're not great at team fighting, there's just not a place for you in 3v3. Yeah. As where 5v5, if you can hold the lane, much like Flash did in the top lane for a good probably half of that match of NA versus SEA, you know, you can find a spot on a pro team.
That's true. Yeah, it is going to open up the play for a lot of people, especially I think junglers too, people that can roam and look at the map as a whole, like take that all in and be like, where do I need to be? I'm going to go here, gank,
right,
do things like that, that can think of it bigger than just like you said, mechanics. Like, all right, I got to make sure I get all this off at the right moment and hit them here.
Because with the right mix of players, like if you don't even have to be a great team fighter, you know, great mechanical skill is, because I think like being in the right place at the right time is going to be more important than being able to fight.
Right. Yeah.
You know? And especially if you have 3 other high skill mechanical players that can fight. You know, if you're just really intelligent about your rotations, if you're a jungler, like if you look at the scope of that map and the fog of war, like you brought up, and how many bushes there are, like a smart jungler could probably do massive jungle rotations if they're very good on the timing of the respawns and when to do their rotation. Like you could go through the enemy's jungle and take all the camps without them ever knowing you're there, minus the scout cams and stuff like that. But you know, if you're just making all kind of akin to what T-Tigers was doing to everybody in the worlds, right? Like, I'm not going to give you any of your jungle because I'm just going to be that much further ahead of you in the rotations. I'm just that much better at my timing.
Right.
There's even more opportunity for like a jungler to starve out the opposing enemy's jungle and never, you don't have to be a great fighter, you don't have to have a high mechanical skill, because if you're smart enough to be there when they're not, you know, so there's some opportunities there that I don't think were there before.
Right. Yeah. And it looked like from a lot of these matches that heroes with these AoE abilities are probably going to be the top pick for the beginning part of once 5v5 is released, because seeing a Ardent Gauntlet come down and trap, you know, half the team in, that's a small space now for 5 people or 4 people even to be standing in, or a Celeste ultimate. It's you know, going to hit someone.
That's one of the, you know, you bringing that up is one of the other reasons I'm hugely disappointed that they got rid of the Echo Gauntlet. Because, you know, you're right, like on this big map with all these bodies, a gauntlet is really chaotic place to be. But now if you can just pop a reflex block and get out of it, you know, because you don't have that Venn diagram gauntlet to confuse everybody, you know, I would have loved to see that play out in the chaos of a full 5v5 team fight.
Maybe, and it could always come back. You know, they may see that it's not as toxic or confusing as it is currently, and now with 5v5 we can try this again.
Yeah, I don't know how you felt about it, but I know when their explanation for it was just something that frustrated the players.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of the point of
of a game. Yeah.
What I'm doing to the opposing team is to frustrate them. And I could probably come up with a list of 5 to 10 other abilities that are 1,000 times more frustrating than the Venn diagram gauntlet. Why are those in the game?
Sure, yeah. So, yeah, hopefully they reconsider this. But
yeah.
Anything else from 5v5 that you saw that we haven't touched on, or anything you're seeing? Like,
you know, like just, and I said this in one of my podcasts before, but it just felt like the game grew up. I was not nearly as excited about 5v5 as everybody else, because I was like, you know, the 3v3 version of the game is great. I really enjoy, you know, Vainglory now. Not that I'm anti 5v5, but I just like, okay, if it gets here, it gets here. Not that big a deal. I like what I got.
Right. It was like do I need it? Yeah.
Yeah. But then like I watched it and it's just like this game grew up and you're like, you know what? This is a real game now. Like this is a game that's worthy of me sitting on my butt and staring at Twitch for hours at a time. It's like, so just watching the ebbs and the flows, and because let's face it, in 3v3, except for some very rare instances, at about 6, 7, 8 minutes into the match, you know who's winning.
Right, yeah.
Right, you could probably have a 75% guess rate of who's going to win at the 8-minute mark, if not better. Mm-hmm. If you watch it, and for anybody listening, if they haven't watched, go back and watch the NA versus SEA. I'm sure EA versus SEA was just as good, but I paid more attention to the NA match. But to see how many times that match goes back and forth, like it starts out, especially when Flash makes his god play, which I gotta say, it's not fair that Flash has been such a legend at 3v3, and the very first time he plays 5v5, he pulls off this like legendary play. It's not fair that he's that good. But he pulls off this play when he's the only player alive, and that completely swings the match into NA's favor, and it just looks like they're going to just dominate the rest of the game. They start pushing down turrets and stuff like this, but then SEA comes back, and then, so they start fighting back, they start getting kills, they start getting some momentum back. But then some of the NA guys start like trying to backdoor the top lane, I think it was, because they had all of the turrets down, and they so there's this point where SEA is pushing in, but then the other two are trying to backdoor, so SEA has to like port back to defend, and like just the ebb and the flow of the match, like there's the opportunity for such a roller coaster of emotion to happen now, as opposed to like 3v, in 3v3, for that type of emotional roller coaster that happened, you need somebody like starting all over to 1v3 the entire Gangstars team who is up 15 kills to nothing and make like this miraculous comeback like he did this past season. That's what you need for that type of roller coaster of emotion, that it happens like once a season.
Right.
You know what I mean? As where like in just this one match, like I think who you thought was going to win probably changed a good 4 or 5 times throughout the course of this match. Mm-hmm. And that makes it so much more exciting for me.
Yeah, and like you said, watching it now on Twitch, it's going to feel a lot more fun because of these matchups you've now seen on 3v3 over and over. Like, how many times can you watch Ringo into Vox or Vox into someone else? And now you're going to see these heroes with different matchups in new lanes, with the chaos that's happening elsewhere on the map. So it is a completely new game coming out, and just with the same heroes and items that you've are accustomed with.
Yeah, it's really exciting, but at the same time it's a little scary, because like I'm expecting that there's going to be many more matches that are either going to be on an alternate stream or that we're just not going to get to see, because I mean, when you think about how long the day of a VG8 already goes, right, but now you're extending these matches an extra 15-20 minutes each.
Yeah, that could be rough.
Yeah, so there's either going to have, like, they're either going to have to just change it to just like EU and just NA on like separate streams, and you can watch them all day, or I don't know exactly how they're going to work it out, but it's not going to be the same as it was with the different, with the longer times that the matches are going to take. So that's a little scary as far as how that's going to work, and there's got to be some anxiety about how all this is going to work,
right,
as well as some excitement.
Because, right, so everyone gets this 5v5 mode in February. Then the next season of Vainglory starts around there. The spring season, I think, probably starts in March. So now are these teams playing on 5v5? Probably not, because that's a little too soon. And everyone's just going to want to watch these 5v5 matches play out from these pro players. So then 3v3 is going to be happening, and is
Right. Well, I
the audience is
suspect.
gonna possibly hurt that first season if they stick with 3v3.
Yeah. So I see now I don't have any like insider knowledge. Nobody has told me this for certain, but I suspect we've seen the end of 3v3 competitive.
Okay.
I think it's going to 5v5.
Right.
I suspect that the pro teams already have their own server that they play on during the competitive matches.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody calls it the tourney server, the tournament server. So I suspect that all pro teams, I suspect the tournament server will be updated for 5v5 access. So as soon as they release the early access for all the golden ticket people, I suspect that will also get released on the tournament server for all the pro players so they can start getting practiced up.
Right, because it makes no sense to have one season of 3v3.
Yeah, right. Because how are you gonna? And I think the seasons are probably gonna change as well. I don't know. We'll see. But like I don't think you can do a season of 3v3 with that ending in like it did this year, where if you win the championship you get a spot in Worlds. Well, how are you going to do that if it's based on 3v3?
Yeah, I was like, I won 3v3 and Worlds is on 5v5, but it's cool.
Well, and it's kind of weird. Think about it for teams like Vision, and who was the other challenger team that won? I forget what they were called.
I'm totally
Team was it Hazard? Is that the name of it?
Possibly.
Oh. I don't remember. I remember one of the players' name was Hello Kitty. I don't remember the name. Like we've already forgot about the challenge battles.
I know, and there are new teams that are coming in this season.
So now these two teams just won their spot in the VG8 based on 3v3, and you never get to play 3v3. Now you got to do 5v5. So that's going to be a little awkward.
Yeah, and then like you said with the chaos of all that, does the challenger has to become 5v5 if the
I imagine BIS would have to be 5v5 as well.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
there's a lot of moving pieces here.
Yeah, I already feel bad enough for Dragonborn trying to coordinate all of that. Now it's going to be 5v5.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yikes. Good luck to everyone who's behind the scenes running these tournaments and having basically a new game to set up for.
Like I haven't even heard a sniff of this, so anybody listening to me, just don't take this with a grain of salt, I guess. But I wouldn't be shocked if there's no challenger battles next year.
Okay.
Right? It's already going to be a big enough mix-up. It's already going to be hard enough for all 8 teams to find a solid 5-man roster. I wouldn't be shocked if they just decide, hey, we're not going to mix things up and let other teams earn their way back in until, for a year while we get this kind of calmed down.
Right, because Gangstars, they didn't keep their spot in Vainglory 8, but another team that's coming in there that's not really assigned org, maybe they just pick up those players, add a couple more from Gangstars on it, and stay in the Vainglory 8. That's
or I also wouldn't be surprised if Gangstars ends up buying a team, or the team that we can't think about that doesn't already have an organization. Like Vision has an org, they're signed to, Vision is the org, but I wouldn't be surprised if I won't be surprised if we see Gangstars back in the VG8 without them having to earn their way back in. Is all I'm saying. Yeah. I know nothing as far as that goes, but it wouldn't surprise me. Kind of like what who was it? Echo Fox. Right. Echo Fox did that, even though that team just immediately dropped back down into challengers. But I wouldn't be surprised. If it was me running the show, that's probably what I would do. I'm gonna put a hold for a year for the challenge battles, because if we really want 5v5 to be successful, we need the orgs that have been carrying us this whole time to have an opportunity to figure this out.
That makes sense.
That's what I would do.
Whew, man, so much to change here in the next coming months.
It's like I said at the beginning, there's never enough time to talk about all the stuff we got to talk about, man.
So I haven't got my golden ticket yet. I'm going to try to open up some chests here. Did you score one yet?
I scored one on the glitched box.
Okay.
Yeah. like I didn't at the time. I didn't know it was glitched. I had just got home, sat down. I didn't even know that the chests were in the market yet. And my friend on Discord posted a screenshot of him getting a golden ticket. And then so I opened it up. He got his on like the second try. I've seen people get him on the first try. It took me like 10 tries, okay. But I still got it during that brief period of the oops that happened.
Man, I should have jumped on that. I'm gonna spend a bunch of opals, but I have all the skins, so I can afford these opals. But I kind of just hoping, maybe I can just get access so I can talk about it.
Right. Well, and hopefully you have, if you get to buy a bunch of chests, hopefully you have kind of the luck that I had because out of my 10, it's somewhere around 10. Like I didn't count, but out of the 10 chests, if it was 10, like I got an additional 2 rare chest keys. Oh, nice. And I think at least every other chest I was getting like 20 to 30 opals because I would get a duplicate skin because I have all the skins too. So I get a duplicate skin, so they give me opals instead of the skin, and there'd be another like 5 opal card in there and stuff like that. So the 50 opals per chest was really cut in half for most of my chests.
All right, so I'll probably I'll be trying here soon.
To be honest, I don't know where to find my opal balance, so I don't know how many opals I actually went through.
Yeah, there's a lot of UI stuff that is questionable too.
Actually, now that I think about it, I think it's on your. Isn't it on like your
marketplace? Sorry, Mark.
No, it's not in the marketplace anymore. All I see is Ice and Glory, but I think it's on your profile page. Like if you hit the little banner down at the bottom, okay. I think that's where it shows you now that I think about it. But I knew I had a boatload of opals and nothing to spend them on until they release Rhyme for opals, which I'm assuming they're doing since it's a SE skin.
Probably at some point, yeah.
So like I've been waiting for that, and they're like, "Oh, here's and I'm thinking because they said that they were going to release a special box that would have a chance for the golden ticket. if people wanted to pay for it. I'm going, great. Now I got to go buy ice, and I went, oh, there's an opal box. Let me spend some opals.
No, that was smart of them to do that because it's a good thing for the players that have been playing for a long time to use it that way to get this access. So. Well, I think that's gonna do it for this episode. Like you said, we could continue talking for a long time on this. But we'll let you probably record some stuff, make some more content. Belligerent, thanks for joining me. This was great.
Oh, yeah, I had a blast. Thanks for having me on.
Where's the best place for people to find you, get in touch?
Best place to find me is on Twitter at belligerent BLG3RNT_VG. That's the best place to find me. That's if you want to find my podcast. That's probably the easiest place because I don't have enough subscribers for a custom YouTube channel yet. Or like if you want, I think it's 100. Yeah, I'm at like 59 or 60, something like that. So need a few more before I can get that. And if you want to find the show on iTunes, just search for my name. Don't try and search the name of the show. Just BLG3RNT, and that'll pull up the show because I'm listed as the author. So that's the easiest way to find it. So you can get us on the podcast app thing, whatever that does. I never use it, but I know.
Awesome. Well, I'll include links in the description so everyone should go check that out.
Awesome.
And then you can subscribe to Shatter The Vain as well when you're over there. Also goes up on YouTube as well, and Twitter at Shatter The Vain. And I'll be back next week with 186, probably talking more 5v5 as we, learn some more, get some more details. That update 2.12 is going to be here before we know it, probably that first or second week in January. So get ready for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Take care.
All right. Have a good one.
Let's get this over with.